and I'm live with a couple of Millers to discuss an episode of Homicide Life on the Street. It's called
Dead End.
We're not actually Millers, by the way.
I know.
You don't have a mill.
I know.
We're not crossbeam, gonna skew on treadle. Okay, so episode 14 of season 3, Dead End, which is written by some combination of James Yoshimura and some other people.
Yeah, they're on screen.
You got that? You got those credits, Ben? I can't see them, so.
Yeah, it's. I think it's Jorge.
Jorge Zama and Julie Martin.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, so back to my recap here. I'll pull that up on the screen because the iPad can't do more than one thing at a time. Okay, so the episode opens with Pimbleton and Bayless interrogating Manuel Sampierre, a friend of Holton's. Holton fled to Sampierre's janitor's room just before the detectives could get there. Going on Manuel's advice, Pimbleton and Bayless head to a motel where Holton is said to be at. When the detectives arrive at the motel, they find out they missed Holton again, this time by about an hour. Ranger and Barnfather order Russert to investigate Giardello. Russert informs G of this inquiry and asks for his case files. Russert eventually finds out that Giardello signed the warrant with the wrong apartment number on it. Later, G bursts in on a meeting between Barnfather and Russert admitting what he had done. Mitch and Munch, sounds like a good clown duo, pair up and retrieve a set of keys belonging to Holton that Detective Higby found. This takes them to a subway station where Holton keeps his porn stash in a locker. The detectives wait with their eyes set on the locker. A woman eventually shows up and says she's Holton's girlfriend. In the box, she reveals that Holton sometimes liked to spend time at his father's old shipyard. This is the detective's next stop. At a briefing where Pimbleton gets into an argument with the QRT officer, the detectives head out to the shipyard. The detectives finally catch up to Holton and chase him through a ship. Once the detectives trap him, they take him back to the precinct. Pimbleton and Bayless take Holton to the box and start to grill him. Holton at first confesses to the shooting of Howard, Felton, and Bolander, but Pimbleton and Bayless realize this is false after Holton doesn't know the specifics of the shooting. Soon Holton confesses to murdering the child. The detectives inform G he didn't shoot the others, and G is furious as they are now looking for someone off their radar. Felton is now up and about in a wheelchair and visits Howard, who is now conscious. Bolander remains unconscious. Okay, so let's see if we got any review here to read. Yes, David B226 Morris. Second episode in the police shooting arc moves a little slower than the previous episode. This too is standard homicide behavior. Half of a cop's life is spent on stakeouts or waiting for suspects to reappear. For the first half of Dead End, comparatively little happens. That doesn't mean that there isn't some great stuff. We continue to see more into the makeup of Bayless and Pimbleton. Showing some rookie tendencies even now, Tim tries to think positively and hope that his friends are okay. Pimbleton is the realist. He knows that they could die, but that he can do nothing about it. The only thing he can do is have the webpage reload because it sucks. Only thing he can do is catch their shooter. The single-mindedness that we see in Frank continues to permeate them. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Things actually are going better for the detectives. Felton is feeling pain in his foot and shoulder, but he's doing better physically. Emotionally, he's going through some pretty dark territory. First, he has finally come to the realization that he and his wife no longer love each other. A particularly sad one considering all the effort he put into finding her. He's also feeling guilty about the possibility that his partner might die and that he can do nothing to help it. Daniel Baldwin does some fine work in his scenes, but his finest moment comes near the end when he visits Kay's room for the first time. The look on his face as he traveled down the hall, that was a great job. Even though Bolander and Howard are still in critical condition and therefore absent from the screen for most of the show, we still get a sense of their presence. In particular, we learn more about Bolander's relationships with his partners. Mitch claims that he and Stan got along so well they took vacations together and had great fun, something he's never done with Munch. Eventually, Mitch confesses that they had a great deal of difficulty getting along outside the job, but despite this, both men clearly care for him, though they don't say it. We also meet Margie, Stan's often spoke of but never seen ex-wife. For all the coldness Bolander accuses her of having, she seems a personable middle-aged woman who is afraid of losing her husband, but it's nervous about seeing him. During this episode, the police slowly circle the nets around Glenn Holton. We learn some more about pedophilia and learn some surprising things. Holton has a girlfriend, or at least someone who cares enough about him to risk collecting his pornography stash. We also see some new faces. For the first time, we see QRT, Quick Response Team, Lieutenant Jasper, played by real-life Baltimore Homicide Police Commander Gary Giardello. There you go. Is the first time we see the real G. Although he's actually D rather than G. They have their own sense of pride and confidence in their abilities. Inevitably, he and Pendleton clash on how to surveil and capture Holton in the shipyard where they finally catch him. This isn't just Frank's fault. As we'll learn, Jasper doesn't get along with anybody from Homicide. And having spent enough time supporting the detectives, the bosses decide they must look for a scapegoat. Granger and Barnfather manipulate Russert into investigating her fellow shift commander and assigning blame for signing the arrest warrant, which, as we learned in the previous episode, had the wrong apartment number on it. At first, G is enraged at the lack of support. However, because he is the kind of man that he is, he takes the heat from the bosses. This time, however, Russert rushes to his defense, revealing her loyalties. Oddly enough, Barnfather takes his rebuke quietly in a rare moment of compassion. But there are more serious problems ahead for everybody. Bayless and Pendleton interrogate Holton on both the shootings and the murder he did commit. Playing to a sense of fear of what will happen to him, he cops to the shooting, only to confess he is actually not the shooter. The police have been chasing the wrong man. The investigation is back to square one. Few TV shows would dare devote more than 20 minutes, let alone 2 episodes, going after an attempted police killer and end up chasing the wrong man. But this is how Homicide is different. Nothing has been gained by the end of Dead End. The police have no clear idea who the shooter is. Still in critical condition, but we feel the enormous impact nevertheless. This is what lets what could have been a cops and criminal chase into something as effective and strong as this episode is. This is powerful stuff. My score 9. No, that's what he says. What do you say, Ben?
What I say there is what was cleverly done is that so for the audience will think, yeah, they didn't get the guy that killed the 3 cops, but they were able to catch a paedophile.
Right. So that's sort of the the bittersweetness of the episode is, as I remarked as I was watching it again with Morgan, is that Howard's case goes down even as she's lying in a hospital bed.
And
they catch the murderer of Billy Borkin.
And as you know, you've got Bonfather. Well, it might not might be partly compassion, but also the fact that he blames it on Granger,
right?
As saying, well, Granger didn't do the update, so it's just covering his arse, isn't he? But
yeah,
a lot of that goes on with SJs, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's the thing is Granger's not there to defend himself, so it's easy for Barnfather to say, well, it was, about that. Which I have a similar dynamic in my office, which I won't go into, but in a sense, there's a big boss that's very rarely in the office, but then the boss that is in the office, it's like, well, he can kind of push some things off on the big boss that isn't there, so it's similar. But even though Barnfather and Granger are together more often, but anyway, yeah. So that's the real ship commander from David Simon's book Homicide: A Year on the Killing Streak, Gary Giardello.
I'll get the image up of him. I think I took a.
Yeah, makes the first of several appearances as Jasper, the QRP chief guy.
I mean, you've got to think, hang on a minute here, Pendleton. You're a homicide detective, you're not involved in tactical situations.
Yeah, well, Pendleton
went outside your field.
Ego, and he tends to think that, he's right about everything, and sometimes somebody has to kind of check him. Be like, wait a minute here, let somebody do something who knows what they're doing.
Thinks you can TI it with just intelligence. So sometimes you need some knowledge as well and some experience. Right.
And the good thing about Pendleton, though, is he can learn stuff, and he can allow himself to be checked and not, just fly off into a rage all the time. No, he sometimes does, but he doesn't always do that. And here they're able to cooperate enough to complete their mission, which is to capture Holton. Of course, not knowing that he's not the police shooter at the time.
Is that him?
Yep, that's him. So, folks, that was the actual fifth commander of the Homicide Unit in Baltimore at the time. At the time that the book was written. And by the time that this show was on, he was no longer in that position. He was still working for the Baltimore PD, but as a consultant or advisor to certain things, and also working as a consultant to, like this one. So even in the episodes he doesn't appear in, he was around to comment, to try to get things more realistic in the script, basically to consult.
So this guy, G, was based on this guy.
Right.
Right, so what we can do is sort of... So these are the grabs I have. So this was apparently them putting pressure on... is it Horton? Is that the name of him?
This guy?
No, this is Horton's... No, I was just wondering if the name of the guy, of the pedo, was Horton.
Holton, with an L.
Holton, right.
Holton.
Right, so that's his so-called friend or acquaintance. Quite.
Well, and the cast, and then, Tony Lobianco, the first member of the guest cast, is the one that played Mitch Drummond.
Right.
Michael Curry played Kay's father. Not sure who Dana Ivey is. Clayton LaBeouf is Barn father.
Ah.
Oh, it might have been because Gloria Rubin is the sex crime detective, so the other one was probably the one who played Holton's mother.
Now, I've got some credits from the end.
Or it could have been Bolander's ex-wife.
Because we got these here.
Yeah, so Holton, Gary D'Addario, Bo James is Higby, so he's made several appearances so far. He's one of the night shift detectives who works under Russert's shift.
Then we've got Reardon, Alice, Judy, Manuel, and Doctor.
Yep. So yeah, this episode contained one of my favorite Felton Lewis scenes in the hospital when Felton asks Lewis how you get over losing your partner, and they have a great conversation about that. And Lewis brings him a giraffe. Everything about that was great.
Yeah, that was a good scene. I liked the part where he was holding a giraffe away from Lewis.
Yeah.
Like, no, my giraffe.
Yeah, that one right there. No, that's mine now. And then, stuff like that with the ship, I think one of the best things about Homicide was, the fact that everything is filmed on location where, everything they shoot is actual stuff in Baltimore. So it's like, just adds another layer of authenticity to everything where you're not filming anything on a Hollywood lot. Everything is real thing. So you get some great locations because of that.
What about the box and the offices at the station?
Yeah, that was an old police building that was no longer in use. They had moved to a new building, so they used the old building, and they used all the old cars because they had moved on to they had just bought new cars when they started filming Homicide. So the police department they got all the old Chevy Cavaliers that the detectives used before that, and that's what they used during the time on Homicide. So So it was a little blast from the past for the actual Baltimore detectives because they could watch the show and see their old cars in action.
Yeah. Right. So, do you think that when they showed the box, do you think that was a set box?
It is a set in a sense that it's, it's the set they're using, but it is an actual room in that building.
Oh, so it's a real room.
It's used originally as an interrogation room. I don't know. That I would probably have to do a little more research to find out, because I don't know if I don't know if the room they used for the homicide squad room is actually was a homicide room or even a squad room itself. It may have just been an office room. I don't know, because that building was a police. It was a city building that contained police,
right,
but no other departments of the city. So I don't know specifically if what they used for the squad room and the box and all that was actually police detective stuff. Because I haven't come across that information in my research of homicide at this point.
Right. So basically, everything is on location, even the interior stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's all real buildings in Baltimore. There's nothing that they built as a separate set. I mean, obviously there's things they brought in to be part of the thing. Like I said, the building was no longer in use, so they had to bring in all the desks and chairs and the board and all that stuff. It wasn't just sitting there for them, but the rooms themselves were already there.
Yeah, it was very effective, the chase sequence through the ship, and the music was good at that point as well.
Yep.
We've got a quick response to him. Very good through this order. You've commented on these people. Funny. When she was talking about when she was cleaning on the steps.
Yep.
And there's a good line about, oh yes, I noticed an error in the production.
What's that?
This thing here, the boom mic came into shot. But you see, that probably would not have been visible at the time on TV screens because television would overscan and they wouldn't actually show the whole of the picture on, the older-fashioned TV, the cathode ray tube TVs. They would actually crop the picture a bit, so that may not have actually been seen on TV at the time.
It could have been low-flying bird.
Yeah.
Censored.
But I mean, they did shoot it on film, and so one of the problems with film is
Whitney Rensick. Yeah, so that building is in a section of Baltimore called Fells Point. Like I said, it used to be. It had pretty much been no longer used, so that's why they used that as the. And that is the actual. Unlike some TV shows where there's an exterior that's not the same building that the interior is, that is the same building that they were filming in. So. It's consistent. Here's where G almost destroys a football.
Yeah, this woman here, she was funny.
Mm-hmm. Life sucks. You suck. Glenn sucks.
And this was Meldrick giving her a look after she just said that he's not handsome.
Mm-hmm.
Why'd you bring the handsome ones? Are you going blind? I thought, whoa!
Yeah, I need to get your eyes checked.
Yeah, I can't believe she actually said that.
It's a nice little ribbing between cops.
Yeah.
Couldn't let them get too comfortable.
Yeah, because she did mention it very early on. She just dropped that she had a boyfriend in there very quickly. Whereas if she liked him, she may have forgotten about that fact.
Or she's saying that to see how he reacts to it. Games that some people play.
Oh, that beats the picture. Right.
And here's Pembleton playing with his teddy bear.
Yep.
And Bayless is in awe of it.
I
Because he never
considered
had
you.
a teddy bear growing up. Yeah, it could be like the Blake 7 comedy book and make up some stuff that didn't really happen.
Yeah, go on then. What stuff would you put?
Well, I just said it. It said Pembleton's playing with his teddy bear, and Bayless is in awe because he never had a teddy bear growing up. And here's where Pembleton calls Bayless a snob because he says he wouldn't ride the subway.
But in reality, it's, Pembleton's a little bit of a snob when you see his home life.
No, he's not. Come on. Yeah, I like how they drew the waves in there. Here's the water right here. We're gonna do this by drawing little squiggles to indicate the water, in case you weren't sure what was there. D and G. D and G. Lewis and a giraffe. Yeah, so once again you have continuity of Homicide where you bring up Corsetti is mentioned twice in the episode, once by name in this scene, and then when G is listing what's going wrong and says he had a suicide this past year in the squad. So
I think I'll make that the thumbnail.
all right. And we also get a brief visit from Felton's brother-in-law who brings the kids.
Yeah. Now, it doesn't look like that through binoculars. You just see one set.
Yeah, that's one of those weird things that for some reason every TV show or movie thinks if they don't show it like that, people will somehow not accept that's binoculars, even though that's not what binoculars look like when you look through them. Like it's just the accepted thing, I guess, in TV movies is you just have to do that thing. You have to do that fake binocular shot.
The only time that happened for me when I was looking through binoculars is when my binoculars were broken.
Yeah. Well, maybe they were looking through broken binoculars. You never know.
Yeah, that was probably quite dangerous as well in that shirt running around. This guy does look young.
Yeah, like you said, he was 41 when this was filmed, so he looks younger than he was, that's for sure.
I wonder if
he does not look 14 like Vincent keeps saying.
Yeah, I wonder if the makeup lady added little bits of grey, mate. Although you said he was 40 already.
Yeah, I don't know if that was natural or not.
I tell you what, you get away with playing a teenager on stage, though.
Maybe if he was far away from the audience.
Yeah. Dye his hair. Is G's hair growing a bit?
Yeah, that happens. There's that scene is when everybody's like staring at Holton, which is used in the DVD intro thing when they have a little montage of scenes. They have the scene where everybody's looking at him.
Oh yes, we've got to mention. There was a scene with Munch and Mitch where they do where of course he's from the ballistics, and they mention Felton being a bit on the tubby side helped to save his life.
Yeah. I
The fat and muscle.
I mentioned last episode that they would make a comment about that because you were talking about that when you were showing the
when he had his sex scene, he had his shirt on.
Yeah, because you were talking about it when he was shown in the hospital bed without a shirt. And I was there's going to be a line about that in the next episode, and that's what I was talking about when he and he says that Munch says he's not exactly Mr. Macrobiotic is how he put it.
Yeah.
Here's how an ENTP calls someone fat.
Yeah, pretty much. Because folks in those days would have this macrobiotic diet thing. Yeah, you could not accuse Munch of being fat.
No, he's not.
You'd have to be an evil person to do that. You'd have to.
That was another line that was kind of just sort of throwaway line, but was funny from the previous episode when Pemberton tells Mitch to work with Bayless, and he refers to him as this tall detective right here. But yeah, in the last episode, we forgot to give our rating numbers. So, I'd just like to say that I gave that episode a 9.
Ooh.
While we're at it.
Well, no scenes in the dragged. I don't think. There was no drag in that.
Well, okay, I do remember you said you gave the acting 10 out of 10, but you didn't specifically say if that was your actual rating for the episode. Anyway, I gave that one a 9, and I give this one an 8.
Yeah, I mean the acting, that whole pump, I might give that one a 9 as well because the acting was so good. I don't think there's anything in any boring scenes that would knock points off.
Yeah. This one, the scene with Stan's ex-wife. I mean, I didn't have a problem with it, but it didn't really add much to the episode. So that scene was a little boring, but I liked the Felton Lois scene a lot, as I said, and the stuff with Russert and the bosses. Again, I don't fault any of the actors involved or even the actual writers because they were under directives from the network to find things for Russert to do. And so they have to contrive these things for her to be involved in, like, oh, let's have her investigate G for an episode, but then at the end it's pretty much resolved. So there wasn't really much point to that, except just to once again show that the bosses like to meddle with things, and
Yeah, because she's the night shift commander, so you have to sort of like, well, if you got to round during the day all the while, when does she sleep?
Yeah. Well, in a case like this, they kind of make the point nobody really sleeps because everyone's involved with trying to do it and solve it. But
it's amusing that the network-derived things that are under network pressure usually come out in the bosses are screwing with.
Yeah, see, well, they did that on purpose, like because that's the little in joke that runs through Homicide is when the network interferes with stuff, and says, okay, you have to do this. They say, okay, we'll do it, but when we do it in a way where we stick it to the network while we're doing it, and so they say, oh, well, we'll have Russert be in a scene where we're talking about how the bosses meddle with stuff for no good reason and just end up wasting time. So that's exactly what they used her for. So poor Isabella Hoffman, who's like used as this football between the network and the show, because it was like that the whole thing was just kind of done poorly. So it's not in any of the actors' fault or even the writers, because they had to do something. So that's what they did with it. So.
Did the ratings ever pick up? Oh yeah, I'll give it about a 7.
Okay. Yes and no. I mean, they had spikes. There were episodes ago. The one that we watched last time, City of the Bleeds, got a pretty high rating. I don't remember exactly. I didn't have that information, but when we do the next one, there's finally another Wikipedia entry on that episode, so I might have some behind the scenes on that one. But anyway, I believe this story arc about the shootings did increase the ratings for at least that period, but then it would go down again. So and part of that was, and the producers said this quite a bit on the DVD behind the scenes stuff, is that when there was scenes that were like shooting, chase scenes, things like that were typical of cop shows, the network would promote the episode more heavily because they had stuff they could put in the promos that looked exciting.
Yes.
When you had episodes that were, mainly dialogue based, I mean, something like Every Mother's Son, it's a great episode, but what do you show in the promo for that one? I mean, you show two mothers talking to each other, and most people, that doesn't sound like an exciting thing they want to see, And there's not a whole lot. You could show the scene with them chasing the kid, listing them, but there's a few things you can show, but not much. Yeah,
I mean,
and so the network promotion department liked it when they had these action scenes because they could actually use it.
I would try to engineer it so there was like about half a minute to a minute of action each episode, just so you could put it in like the trailer, because you've got to think it is what it is. It's like you say with some of the Blake 7 episodes where you go, there's not enough action.
Yeah, right, and you kind of have to strike a balance in there somewhere, and what ends up happening with a lot of shows is that during the sweeps periods and stuff, you have the pressure from the network to ramp up the action and have some more exciting stuff happen, and so that's what they did with this story arc with the cop shooting. But of course the natural thing about that is if the ratings increase because people are tuning in for these special episodes, then once you get back to normal, sort of, then the ratings tend to go down because it's kind of the lull period after the high point. So that happened with Homicide quite a bit. There were isolated things they could promote that would increase the ratings, but even some of those were not to as much as they wanted them to be, obviously.
I think stunt casting would help, or they would have got a big bounce by getting Robin Williams in.
And yeah, they did, and they had some really good guest actors over the years, and so, like I said, sometimes it would help, but sometimes it wasn't, not much of a boost. I mean, they had episodes with James Earl Jones and some other, and some people, of course, that went on to become bigger stars that weren't as well known at the time. The next episode, watch for a certain guest star who's pretty well known. Anyway, I won't tell you anything more about that, except just to say that it's a good actor.
So, what did it do well to last the number of seasons it did, given the ratings?
Yeah, it was hanging on by a thread most of the time. It was always in danger of cancellation, including in this season, at the end of the third season. In fact, at the time, they had actually only originally, when the third season started, there was only a guarantee of 13 episodes. So, this would have been it if they hadn't gotten the continuation, because this was the 13th episode. So,
and there was another series at the time, folks, that was almost cancelled each year, and that was Babylon 5.
Yeah.
So
at the end of each season, they would make that end of the season not knowing whether they would be back the next year or not. There was only one time, there's only one season where they actually had already told them they were renewed for the next year. Every other season, they ended it not knowing if that would be their last episode or not.
What about end of season?
And in fact, they made the end of season 6 as if it would be the final episode, because at that time they were basically told it probably will be canceled. And then at the last second, because of a deal that the network did with ER and also some other shows that went off the air like Seinfeld, they needed it for one more season, so it was brought back.
So is that why they didn't build up to like end of season cliffhangers?
Well, yes and no. I won't give away too much of that, except to say that there may be one or more end of season cliffhangers to come.
Right. Right then. I don't think there's anything else to say about that.
All right then. So join us next time for Endgame.
Ooh. Now, Endgame is a title that gets used a lot.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.